Last time we talked about the differences between a small open economy and a large open economy. A small open economy is influenced by the world events, but cannot influence the world. For example, Luxembourg or Belgium or other small countries. These countries are influenced by the world. So if the price of, if the world's interest rate changes, the country will be affected. But the country itself cannot change the interest rate in the like the world's interest rate. Okay. Here. And but a large open economy, on the other hand, can be influenced by the world and can influence the world back. An increase in desired saving for a small or large open economy leads to an increase in the trade balance of that economy and an increase in the net capital outflow in that economy. So this is their similarity. They're both affected by the world and also by their own changes within themselves. While an increase in desired investment leads to a decrease in trade balance and a decrease in net capital outflow. In a large open economy, however, a rise in desired saving leads to a fall in domestic interest rate, while a rise in desired investment leads to a rise in domestic interest rate. So if the large open economy, because it's like very big and very strong, like the United States, and very rich, wants to save more, the money will leave. The money only stays, and the interest rate within this country, this large open economy, would go up if the desire for investment goes up. This is one of the points that Trump's tax cuts were criticized for. People said that if you give corporations more money because desired investment is not necessarily going up, their costs and like their investments are constant, so they just have more money available to them. Their desired saving would go up. What happens next is that the money will leave. The money will be invested somewhere else where there is a higher expected return. Leads to a fall in the domestic interest rate, while a rise in desired investment leads to a rise in domestic interest rate. So one more time, in a large open economy, an increase in saving will not necessarily immediately change the desire to invest more. So supply curve shifts to the right, interest rate would fall to a fall in the domestic interest rate, while a rise in desired investment, demand curve, if it shifts to the right here, if the demand curve shifts to the right, interest rate would go up. Now, we can think of a large open economy as being a mix of a small open economy and a closed economy in itself. The direction of the effect of shifts in saving and investment on the trade balance and net capital flows are the same as in a small open economy, while the direction of the effect on the domestic real interest rate and the actual levels of saving and investment are the same as in a closed economy. This is very important. Expect a question about this on your exam. So, goods market equilibrium, we can break up the world into two economies, the domestic economy and the world economy, the rest of the world. Equilibrium in large open. Equilibrium is at a world real interest rate where domestic trade surplus equals trade deficit of the rest of the world. So basically there's open trade. Your surplus is the world's deficit, and of course your deficit is the world's surplus. This is the domestic economy, and this is the rest of the world. So it's saving. Trade surplus. We have a surplus here, and we have a deficit for the rest of the world. Now, a rise in domestic savings from a decrease in autonomous consumption expenditure. So if something happens that make people, the private sector, to just consume less, they will save more. A rise in domestic saving, or it could be from taxes, tax cuts, or a cut in the, God forbid, government purchases, that government actually starts to spend less. Raises the trade surplus and net capital outflows in the domestic country. Raises the trade deficit and capital inflows in the rest of the world. Raises investment in both the domestic country and the rest of the world. And of course, it will lower world interest rates. So if you followed all the world economy after tax cuts, you could see something like this, but in the opposite direction. A rise in taxes raised the trade surplus. What we saw was a tax cut, which lowered the trade surplus of the country, because people were having more money and they consumed more, and they also send money more abroad for investments in other countries. It raises the trade deficit and in the rest of the world. Yep, and other countries will experience the opposite. In those domestic country, investment would go up and lowers the world's interest rate. And of course, the opposite, if the opposite happens in the domestic economy, the world will also experience the opposite. The global saving glut. To explain the puzzling phenomena of the very low US interest rates and the very large trade deficits. An increase in domestic desired investment lowers the trade surplus and net capital outflows in the domestic country, lowers the trade deficit and capital inflows in the rest of the world, raises world interest rates, and lowers investments in the rest of the world. So, yeah. Okay, so this was chapter 4. I had to like quickly wrap it up, if you noticed. So this one was a very